What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is season 8, episode 16. And yet again, this has been a theme lately. I've been talking a lot about Pearl Jam on this channel. And not normal for me, Jason, but I've got Jason from State of Love and Trust podcast. Thanks for hanging out, buddy.
Howdy. Welcome.
I talk about Pearl Jam here and there with guests that I have on here, but it's never like devoted. And this is the second time I've done this in the course of 3 weeks since why the hell are those balloons popping up?
That is Mac OS at its
I
finest.
know, right? But since Dark Matter came out, I've had a couple people. So like the guys from Grunge Bible and then you to talk about this stuff. So obviously we have a shared love of this band that runs extremely deep, almost fanatically, I would say. And I want to find out how did you hear about this band? Like, when was your first encounter with Pearl Jam?
Oh man, the origin story question. Yeah, so summer of '90. I feel like everybody says it's summer of '92, but seriously, summer of '92. I know I can tell you exactly where I was, as I think a lot of folks can. It was a summer rec camp. I was 10. Go figure. And we were sitting at a picnic table playing like Yahtzee or some board game, right? It's sweltering hot out. We're underneath these trees, picnic table, just kicking it. But there's a radio on the table, and Jeremy comes on, and my attention switched from whatever board game we were playing that I was probably losing, and what is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then, you go home and then you turn on MTV and all of a sudden it's on there because they played like, the same 15 music videos. And when they played those, and I was like, wow. Even at 10, it felt something like got stirred around inside me.
Yeah.
So that was the very beginning. That was the seed, if you will.
Okay. That's funny. It's like the exact same thing with me, except I was playing NBA jams.
And Tournament Edition?
Yeah, probably. And I was on fire, and my buddy put on 10, he had the CD. I didn't even have a CD player at that time. My older brother did. So he let me borrow it because he was way more into Nirvana. So he let me take it home to listen to it. So we listened to it in his room. I stopped playing and just sat in front of his stereo and listened to it. My friends were playing. And then I took it home and put it on my brother's stereo and just sat in my brother's room and listened to it twice. And that was it. And I told my dad immediately I want to play guitar. So like,
oh yes.
How did that enter for you? Was that later, like for playing guitar, or?
So I started playing a few years later. I think I was 13. My mom got me a Strat copy, as you do. I think made by a company called Samick.
Yep, I remember.
And it was one of those like combo packs you get at Sam Goody, or Sam Ash, different Sam. And it was like it was a little tiny like 6-inch speaker combo amps that had nothing to it. It would sound like garbage, but I started playing on that, and it was pre tab book. It was like right on the cusp. I didn't have tab books yet, but it was like, okay, let's listen to this Aerosmith CD and like try to rewind the CD, or try and rewind Dookie, or try and rewind 10 and figure out what the hell they're playing. And then when high school hit, I just dove deep into Metallica and got all those tab books, and was like, that's how I got my right hand to like start doing stuff. And I was like, oh man, I can do this. I can't solo for shit, but but my rhythm playing was okay for me, and I was able to play a lot of those songs, and that's where it kind of came in.
Nice. That's something else we should talk about too, is like, yes, we love this band, and this is probably, I could say, probably speak for both of us, that it's our favorite band.
Yes.
But like, what other music are you into? We've kind of talked like in Instagram a little bit, but like, what other stuff are you like in the periphery, like that you listen to a lot?
Our tastes, and we talk about this on the show sometimes, how tastes change over time. And for example, Vitalogy and No Code come out, and I'm 14 and 16 or whatever. Is that right? No. Yeah, 14 and 16.
Probably right around there, yeah.
Yeah, and just not being able to access that because what Ed's going through at that time is, I don't know how to, like, Around the Bend, for example. A lullaby to Jack Irons' kid. I don't have kids yet. I don't know. That doesn't mean, it means nothing to me, I connect with it years later. And there's a lot of music that's like that, but there's a lot of stuff that's nostalgic that I've hung on to. And I'm kind of all over the rock spectrum. Most genres of rock I'm into, from shoegazy stuff to classic to punk to metal. Like you could throw me into a Replacements and then into Slayer, but then at the same time, I think you could put on like the Taylor Swift Lover record, and I'm like, this is fucking great.
Dude,
Can I swear? Am I allowed to swear?
yeah, of course.
So
Oh, that
I think
record is so good.
I think she's super. Listen, people will knock her for any number of reasons, and some people will say she's not the greatest singer. You know what? There are a lot of musicians out there who aren't the greatest singers, but they know how to write a damn song. And what she's able to do, how to spit out so many. Listen, I will say that I don't think her last one is that great, but I think most of her career has been incredible at what she's been able to do. And on the flip side, I think there are people who sing super, super well. That I understand they sing so well, but I cannot, for the love of me, connect with their music. Case in point, and I'll take In the Flames, is Beyonce. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I hear that she's good technically, but it's like, okay, I get that you're a good singer. You don't have to try and prove it to me over and over again. But that's a whole other discussion. But I'll listen to anything, man.
Yeah.
I grew up, my parents in the house, we had the vinyl player. We were listening to Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Donna Summer. I mean, Songs of the Key of Life was on rotation all the time. Like, so I've got a lot of, I like groove. If you got a good groove, we're good.
Yeah. I feel the same way, man. Man, that's awesome that you grew up with that stuff because like,
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, right. Because a lot of people don't I had to seek out music. My parents listened to music, but it wasn't anything I wanted to hear. I mean, I'm like the dude. It was the Eagles primarily. Right. I'm not a big fan. I'm just like, I'm like the dude. I'm like the Big Lebowski. It's like, it's not for me. And that's fine. I respect the hell out of them as musicians. I'll say that. Like those dudes are players. Especially Joe Walsh. But
oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like just like going back to like Taylor Swift, like that record, Lover. I think when I was like around my daughter's birthday this year, we were redoing her room. So we were repainting and ceilings, walls, everything. And my wife and my daughter are big fans. So they put on like all her records. But that one hit me the most because it's full of great grooves.
I don't want to say it's the most eclectic because I think every album she has a general theme. I think musically speaking, like there's guardrails on it, but she still tries to be dynamic. That's why I kind of don't like the new one because it feels super undynamic. It's just kind of the same brooding thing for 31 songs. With some outliers, of course, but like Lover, like every single track, it was like the right pop track for that point in the album.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, I can put that thing on front to back. It's really good.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, I just started covering I Forgot That You Existed. And
oh, really?
I've turned it into like a funk thing. So it's kind of like that Scary Pockets type, turn a song and flip it into a different genre and make it more groovy with like a smaller band kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that song is killing, dude. It's got so much great, her phrasing in it is really hip. It's couldn't be more simple, kind of 1-4-5 progression kind of a tune. It's very diatonic, but like it is super hella hip. Like the way she kind of like weaves phrases together and like goes over the bar line. I think she's fantastic too. I never in a million years until this year did I really listen to her, and now I get it,
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of talk a little bit about, so maybe like when you came back around to Pearl Jam after you maybe got a little bit more maturity and some years behind you in the rearview mirror, as it were. Do you feel like what era was that? Was that like college? Was it post college? Like when did you come back around?
I was a dummy that really let his friends kind of guide him in certain ways. When I was, tween era, Jason, if we can quote back to Taylor Swift. So I didn't really give Vitalogy or No Code enough of a chance, and so I kind of wrote it off after hearing, even though I had heard like Better Man, I was like, okay. So it wasn't until a buddy of mine, we picked him up from school once we were 16, and he had just gotten Yield, like it just came out because this is February of '98. So we picked him up from school, and he plugs in the CD. Brain of J hits, and I go, "What? Okay, this is something. I'm liking this." And then Faithful comes in, and I'm like, interesting. And the way that I've always called it a pyramid song because it just goes, it starts low and it builds up, and then it comes back down again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is super cool. No Way was like oddly heavy. Given the Fly was sore. I was like, why is every song on this record great? And so all of a sudden I got really stoked, and it just so happened that he was in the 10 Club. I don't know how he knew to do that at the time, but he did. And he's like, hey, I'm going to get tickets for this Pearl Jam tour. Do you want to go with me? And I'm like, yeah. I had moved away from that town, like the town I grew up in, up until the age of 13. I had moved away from, and I was back there just visiting for the weekend to hang out. And so I go, okay, cool. So I'm gonna come up in September of '98, and we're gonna go to Hartford, '98. Second row in front of Stone, and I was like, oh wow, this is something. And it kind of just started making the wheels spin. And so every day I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I'd go to Sam Goody every day, and I'd be looking for a new Pearl Jam. Obviously, they just put the damn record out, but then there was something on the board. You know, remember the boards behind the cash register?
Yeah.
Like new releases.
Totally.
And you didn't know what the hell that was. And there's not, I mean, the internet's not really a thing too much at that point. So all I knew was new Pearl Jam was coming. It was live on 2 legs. So I devoured that. And then within a year and a half, Binaural comes out. And I still to this day really enjoy Binaural.
Me too.
And so all of a sudden, things like, oh my god, and I'm back consuming stuff. Because high school for me was just Metallica, like heavy music, mostly Metallica, just diving into that, Megadeth, and so it kind of got me back onto the Pearl Jam thing, and I was like, wow, I forgot,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, you know, I was going to college the summer of 2000, and they did a tour where I went to school in South Florida, and they played South Florida right before I got there, and they played New York City after I left. So I missed everything
altogether.
Drove me nuts. Joined the 10 Club, and then I saw them on the Ride Act tour a couple years later, and I've seen a lot since, thankfully. But yes, I was in Yield in the car.
Man, well, that's a good record to come back into. I love that interview recently too, where Jeff said that it was his favorite record. I was like, yes, like that was like a pivotal moment. That was my freshman year of college, so I remember like being in my dorm room listening to it and playing like Bond, playing like GoldenEye with my buddies. Hey, why does Pearl Jam always revolve around video games with me? I don't know why, but that's like a very vivid memory too, man. Well, let's kind of fast forward, and then we can kind of go back and do what we were saying we were going to do today.
Sure.
But so briefly, we've probably ad nauseum talked about Dark Matter to a bunch of people. I know that you have, you know, but after sitting with it for as long as we've sat with it now, like, what are your thoughts?
Well, we just finished our 2-part review.
Oh, okay.
And it's very, very good. And you can talk about Yield. I don't know that I've enjoyed one of their records as much as this since then. And I think a lot of people are saying something like that. And there's always like that new record bounce. There's always that, you know, honeymoon period. And I actually don't like to review records within like a week or two of them coming out, because I need them to settle, you know. And luckily we didn't start this podcast until May of 2020. So we had Gigaton in our bellies for, what is that, 2-3 months.
Yeah.
So we felt confident and comfortable with that, with those grades. I think I'm gonna feel comfortable with 97% of the grades I gave for this, and those are all quite high. So I'm talking like at least 4 out of 5, because we grade up to 5. And I mean, there is a dynamism across the record. There is, and I told Matt Vaughn from Easy Street Records, I said, and before I had even heard the whole thing, I go to him, I want to hear an amalgam of what's best about the band. I don't need to hear 10 again. I don't need to hear Vitology again or anything. I just wanted, you know, there's some beautiful stuff on Backspacer. There's some really cool stuff on Riot. I want to hear it all kind of finding its way, and, you know, in a like a melting pot, if you will. You know, a fusion. Paul called it back catalog fusion.
That's well put.
And I think it is. I mean, you have some soaring outros like Got to Give and Stevie, and I mean, Setting Sun is like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just fantastic. Wreckage is the song Tom Petty put out like 30 times back in the 80s and early 90s and didn't do again for a while, and he was like, I'll just go ahead and do that for you. You know,
Yeah.
And it's just
What's
fantastic.
It's surprising to me, like, when we went to the, movie theater viewing or listen,
Mm.
I was like, I wonder, like, first time hearing Wreckage, I was like, "Why didn't they lead with this?" It's kinda surprising that they led with Dark Matter, because I was like, "This song is so much stronger," and immediately kind of, like, is inclusive to so many different people. People that have been with them for forever and people that have stepped away but are like, "Oh, this is a different side of Pearl Jam in a way," you know what I mean, that I maybe haven't heard in a while. So I was very, like, I'm curious as to why that was the choice to lead with Dark Matter. I mean, I love that's when that song came out, I was like,
Yeah. I was like,
like,
holy shit.
yeah, I was super
Yeah.
pumped. Same thing with Running. I was like, "Dang, man, this record's gonna be dope."
I think they followed the same script that they did for Gigaton. They put out first the song that is like a like confused, like surprised dog head tilt moment. That isn't actually indicative of the rest of the record's sound. And then they gave you like the punk track, and it was Super Blood Wolf Moon last time, and now it's Running. And then right before the record comes out, they give you something that's a little bit more indicative of the record, that's kind of soaring and big. That it was Quick Escape then. This isn't the same thing as Wreckage, but it kind of, I think, does the same thing. So I think when they put out singles, they generally don't put out like the ballad first,
Mhm.
but
Did
they could
Sirens
have.
come out first?
What's up?
Did Sirens come out first
No,
initially?
mind your manners.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, that's interesting too to think about those 2 songs, the dichotomy of those 2 songs on
So
that
stark.
record too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh man, yeah, it's and I know we talked a little about Something Special, and I felt like it was jarring because I was like, it felt like when you get sushi and you have to eat a piece of ginger to kind of before you eat that next piece.
Or you go to Sephora and you smell the can of coffee beans.
Yeah, it was just like, man, like that was a abrupt like change. And initially, my initial reaction as a musician, because when I listened to the first listen through, just as a fan, I was like,
Hmm.
put yourself in your younger shoes. Don't listen to it like a musician.
Yeah.
Don't, dissect it and all that. Just enjoy it. And I think when I first heard it the first time around, I was like, oh, what happened? Like we were on such a ride. And then I
Especially
was
after
like, "Ugh."
Running in the sequencing.
I know. And it just felt like his phrasing was weird over the harmonic changes and stuff. But the more and more I listened to it, I was like, okay, I get it. Like I get it. And I know why this had to be on this record. Um, I was just like, man, it probably would have hit me differently if it had come out on like National Daughters Day or something like that. I would have been like, oh, I love this so much. You know what I mean?
I said on our review, I think it was part 2, that because it's so specifically about Ed's daughters, that I wonder if it would have gotten a better reception if it was a little bit more vague,
Mhm.
a little bit more poetic, because I find that the songs that are very direct about a personality or a person don't age well. And my 2 examples that I gave, and obviously it wasn't a content comparison, was Bush Leaguer and 7 o'clock, which are very much directed at specific ex-presidents.
Yeah.
So if you didn't like those, then you maybe not like this song because it's so specific. And you have a daughter, and Paul has a daughter. I only have sons. So while you can still apply the same lessons of growth, mindset, and all that stuff, to it, then there's lines like, you're not the type to need a man. It's like, all
Right.
right, that's very, you kind of have to have a daughter to really,
Right. Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
like that one. Like, I get it, but like,
Yeah.
so it's a lovely song. And I'll be happy to hear it when I do hear it. Hopefully I hear it. But yeah, it almost feels like it might have been better served as a standalone thing.
Like a B-side on like Lost Dogs 2.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I think that's the thing is when I heard it, I immediately thought about my kid,
Yeah,
of
of
course you're
course.
going to. But I thought back to when I was in music school and I brought this song in that I wrote about my dad way before he passed. And my professor was like, "This is great, Mark. It's beautiful. The changes are great. You're playing on it's great. You're singing it great, but it feels like a gift song." And that stuck with me. Um, and then when my dad passed in September, I played it at his funeral.
Hmm.
Not a dry eye in the audience, especially me. But I just finished a song writing about him, like in a more vague context. and I sent it to my band. I was like, you tell me what this song's about, because I wanted to be like, is this a gift song? And they all thought it was about a relationship, but nothing to do with my dad. And that's the difference,
That's the brilliance of a good song to a great song. And when you think about songs like Scared of Fear or Setting Sun, I think those are great bookends to this album, because obviously Scared of Fear references literally Setting Sun in it. And you could talk about it being about a relationship, or you could talk about being a relationship with a scene, a group of people, the Seattle scene, the whole thing. If you could see what I'd see now, you wouldn't put that fucking needle in your arm. Like, it could be that, or it could be the personal thing. And I love when he does that kind of thing. I love when anybody does that kind of thing, because you know what it's about, but you can apply it however you want to apply it, and that's the genius of songwriting.
Yeah, man.
To me.
And he did a great job lyrically on this record. I mean, I think this is some of his best stuff yet. And like a lot of the stuff he did with turn of phrase and how he was doing callbacks, like you were saying, like the other tunes, and like weaving a massive tapestry across the whole record.
And quickly too.
Yeah, right.
He wasn't sitting on stuff like he was with Gigaton. And I think Gigaton has some fantastic lyricism in it.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was forcing himself, I think it was in Bob Dylan's bus outside the studio, to do this. And he was telling, was it Zane Lowe or was it Bill Simmons? I forget, so many damn interviews.
I think it was the Zane one. I know what you're talking about.
You know, where he's like, I need you to, he's telling Andrew Watt, I give me the night off. I need to catch up and get some sleep.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah. That had to be such a fruitful experience for that. I mean, you can see the joy on their faces talking about it. Like it must. Oh yeah. Yeah. He seems pretty pumped.
He's chomping.
Yeah. But man, yeah, it's such a great record. So like, let's parlay that into, I wanted to talk to you about, I know there's 13, but let's talk about like studio records, but let's talk about our like top 5 favorite from the studio records.
Okay. Are you counting Lost Dogs as the 13th?
I mean, not really. I mean, there's so many great B-sides on there though. It's like,
I mean, we literally did an episode called Create a B-side Record.
Yeah.
So it's like that you could consider that.
Let's just stick with like the main studio records. Okay. And then so we can do just top 5. And I don't know, I know we talked about this earlier. Like you don't have to do them in order if it's too hard. I put them in order.
I told you I'm a caveat. And the caveat is right now. Right. As we're doing this at 3:22 p.m. Pacific time, this will be my 5, and I reserve the right to change it at 3:25.
Okay, that's totally fine. Fair enough. So let's start at 5, and you tell me what you.
So this is favorite, not best, right? Not what we don't think is the.
Your favorite.
Okay, my favorite
catalog.
I'm gonna say
fifth favorite.
Oh man. All right, I am gonna say my 5th favorite is Vitalogy.
Okay, how come?
I think as a unit, it is so interesting because of those, quote unquote interludes, or those little instrumentals that kind of weave us between and bridges between two other, proper songs, quote unquote. And so many of those songs are legendary. I think when you put it up against other records, though, where every track is a traditional song, and all those tracks are incredibly strong, I would rather hear a collection of really great songs than like a narrative album. And I feel like that, even though Vitalogy is not telling a story, it's more narrative because it's going, it's weaving through moments that aren't necessarily tracks that you're going to hear live, or there's no lyrics. So I love Vitalogy, but I'm listening to Foxy Mop? No. Am I listening to Pry 2 and I Davenita too often? No, not really. So then all of a sudden, even though I appreciate what they're doing for the record, I would rather listen to more proper songs.
Okay.
So that's why it's at 5. And by the way, all these are like squished at the top of my chart. So it's like, 93 points to 99 points.
Dude, yeah, it's hard. I mean, it was kind of easier than I thought it was going to be, but it's still hard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Josh Scott from JHS, that's his favorite record. Like that's the perfect album in my opinion.
And I see the argument for it.
Yeah.
Josh is a smart guy, so.
Yeah. So mine is binaural. I
Ooh, I love
think,
the call. Great
yeah.
call.
So the reason I feel like that record makes my top 5 is there's so many great songs on that record. I love the way it was recorded. I love when you hear the influence of Matt's like drumming and his songwriting and his brain. You can hear that enter on this record. And I just feel like watching that touring band DVD when I was younger and seeing them play like Evacuation and just and that David Letterman appearances when they did that
Oh,
around that era. Oh, dude.
with Grievance.
Oh,
Well,
Grievous
how
is
cool is
such a
it
good
that they,
song.
that wasn't even the lead single, Nothing As It Seems, and yet they go on there, they decide to play Grievance instead.
Dude.
And I always talk about the outro of that song being like a runaway train. Just it goes straight downhill. If you're looking for a great live cut, Saratoga Springs, New York, it's a great live version
Oh,
of
okay.
that.
I love how you're like some of my friends that are into Fish that you know that stuff. I love that about you.
It's kind of I'm forced to know for the show.
Yeah, that's true. But God's Dice too. Like I mean, that's a song I have yet to hear live, and I would love to hear
Me
that
too.
live. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I've seen Alive so many times. I'm like, just give it a rest. Just put that song to bed for a little while. We've heard it a million times. It's, and I think some of my friends who've never seen Pearl Jam, like, but I want to hear that. I'm like, okay, I would prefer they open a gig with it then, not close the night.
Well,
You know?
they did open a gig with that in Gold Coast, Australia. I want to say 2010 or 2014, something like that.
Mhm.
I'm with you. I mean, I've by the end of this calendar year, I'll have seen them 33 times, and I have seen it probably 29 times at that point.
Right.
They though are in the point of their career where it's hardcores and first timers and nobody in between. You've
Mhm.
either seen them a bunch of times and you're just trying to tick off complete albums, or you're somebody's kid who's never been to a concert, never really been to anything, and you're bringing them into the tent, which is awesome. I'm gonna bring my 7-year-old to Ohana Festival at the end of the year.
Oh man, that's
Very excited
cool.
for him to experience all that. And so you're gonna get it. You're gonna get Jeremy. You're gonna get Black. You're gonna
Yeah.
get Betterman. Especially if you're going to a city that has 2 shows, you're gonna get those on one of the 2 nights. Alive, yeah. I mean, what was it, like 2000, 2003? Obviously the Roskilde thing, but that aside, they did every once in a while not play it.
Mhm.
It only became like a real staple, I think I want to say in 05 or 06, where it like never left the set list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could go a show without it.
Yeah. I mean,
If something rarer takes its spot, like a Parting Ways.
right. Dude, yeah. I mean, there's so many tunes. Like another one of my favorite songs is Rival.
Love.
And yeah, and I'm like, I've never heard that. Like, close with that. You know what I mean?
That
That
riff is so
song.
cool.
Oh God, dude, that song just kills me every time it comes
It's
on.
so dissonant, and it's just like it makes you feel weird.
I love it. If you ever, I don't know if you're into jazz fusion, but like, there's this guitar player named Wayne Krantz, and he is a monster. He's actually from the Pacific Northwest, but he lives in New York now. But he is a very dissonant, very interesting harmonic player. The way he improvises is very rhythmically improvisationally based. So it's so like left of center. Anyway, I'm gonna get distracted. Give me number 4.
Okay, 4. Where am I at? I'm gonna go with. This is the hardest part, I think, because the top 2 are locked in, I think. So for now, because I don't want to start any fights, I'll put Dark Matter.
I picked the same one for number 4, buddy. Same one.
Very strong. It's so consistently strong.
Yep. There's not there's now when I listen to it, there's not one song I would want to skip. And that's Testament, It's just a really good album. And I've been telling all my friends who fell off the wagon when No Code hit, and they're like, ugh. And I'm like, why are you bouncing on them? They're still great. But I've been telling all my friends who have been off the wagon since then and to listen to this record, and several of them got back to me. I'm like, wow, dude, this is pretty amazing. So I'm like, yeah, but now you can go back and listen to all those other good ones in between.
That's the thing is with this record, if you were doubting what they were capable of, if you're doubting that they had the ability to write a certain way, whatever your favorite version of the band is, this record proves that all of that was a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It took a super fan to say, I want you guys to live in these worlds. I'm going to push you into these worlds where I think you do your best stuff. But you guys got to get there.
Right.
And they wrote this music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all choices, to quote the t-shirt.
Right.
So you look at Backsplash, you look at Lightning Bolt, you look at whatever albums you have less of a connection to, know that that's where they wanted to go at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can kind of sit with that and be comfortable with that, and if you like other musicians who have eclectic catalogs and you like theirs, go back in with new ears. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm. I agree, dude. I think it's fun to ride the wave and see like how things have changed over time. Because if you look at the no code era, I mean, that's like their boy Neil Young probably had a huge influence on them at that time. And I love talking to people that have made records and be like, where were you listening to when you guys made this record? You know what I mean? And you can hear some of that stuff come out in some of their records, and this one in particular. So, I mean, like Stevie like feels like a Cure cult tune. You know what I mean? To me, like that guitar tone is very cult guitar tone, but like you can, like you said, Tom Petty is on there. You can hear a little bit of Neil influence in there.
Like Got to Give and Won't Tell.
Oh
Very
God,
Neil.
yeah. It's so. I mean, anyway, we can talk about this all day. All right, give me number 3.
3, I'm gonna go Yield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's for one, it got me back in, but like Dark Matter, it is consistently really good. I really like I really like Faithful. I think No Way is I think No Way is one of those songs that's probably better studio than it is live, because sometimes Stone doesn't do some of the things that I wish he would do. For
Mm-hmm.
example, on Nothing Man, I don't think ever played it on his electric with no distortion, like just a clean little vibrato. He doesn't ever do that. He always plays it. He puts it on an acoustic, or he did a resonator guitar for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, stop that. Just play it clean and pretty once.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't play No Way, in my opinion, how he does on the record, and so it kind of loses a little bit of luster live. But 1 through 4, I love. Wishlist is so undynamic, but the lyrical writing is so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And Deal the Evolution is one of my favorite kinds of Pearl Jam, where it's Ed being super snarky and there's an aggressive groove going on, so you can't knock that. In Hiding should have been the next Alive because it's so brilliant and soaring. And then you have some weird ones. You've got, like Push Me, Pull Me, which I think is just so strange, but I like it. All Yesterdays is so pretty and bouncing. You've got, what else am I missing? Low Light,
MFC.
MFC.
You said Brainerd J earlier.
Brainerd J is, I mean, it's just, I think as a collection, it's just got its claws in me in a way that, and I think a lot of people do agree that it's their favorite. And I'm doing a bad job of articulating why, but it's a good collection of songs that's just maybe not as good as a couple other records, but it's really good.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they ever do Sphere shows and they do the Evolution and they have that anime stuff up on the screen?
Well, here's my take on that. And Stone told Kyle Meredith that he will never do the Sphere.
That sucks.
He hates it. But that's why we have the stage set up this tour that we have, because he said, I'll do that, because I bet you Ed and Mike were like, ooh, this could be fun. And that was the compromise, a giant LED screen. And I don't know if you saw the post from Rob Sheridan a couple days ago, where he was like, I had been working on the visuals for this backdrop for the last 3 months with Ed and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, I can't wait to see it in person.
I can't either, dude. I can't either. All right. My 3 is No Code. Very, very specific time in my life. It was my first Pearl Jam show was at Merriweather Post Pavilion in Columbia, Maryland. Had just gotten my license.
Is that 96?
Yes.
So you went to this. Okay. I don't know how many shows you've watched of ours or listened to ours, but there's a guy named Stip who runs the Red Mosquito forums over at theskyscrape.com. has a book coming out this summer. It's gonna be fantastic. But he's a good friend of the show's, and that was his first show too. That's really random.
Yeah,
That
and
went that show.
did he talk about how everybody stormed the pavilion? Everyone from the lawn ran down into the pavilion.
He may have. I don't recall.
That was crazy. So like that was my first time driving because Columbia, Maryland, from where I grew up, was about a 45-minute drive. So my best friend in the world, who's still my best friend, is the best man in my wedding. We went together and I drove, and that was like scary. And that was like during the Ticketmaster crap. So like we bought tickets in the lot. My buddies bought tickets and they were counterfeit. Luckily, ours weren't. But that show was so good. So I like have a specific memory. I bought a Ringer tee, the Smile Polaroid on it, and I just that
Do you still
something
have
about
it?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I have a box of like keepsake T-shirts and stuff that I've kept over the years. But that whole album, I mean, Hail Hail to me when I first heard that, I immediately picked up my guitar and was like, I'm figuring this crap out right now because it was so hip. But there's just so many good songs on that, and like I don't know, dude, like I can't think of a better record to hit me at that time in my life. Just with relationships I had, like with,
Sure. That's
girlfriend
so
at the
key with this
time.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it just stuck, man. It stuck. And I think it's a great album, and I think a lot of people that jumped off ship, and Josh Scott and I talked about this when we did the whole Pearl Jam discography thing, but we both were like, I don't know why people left, dude. It's such a good album. Just like so good.
Casual
So,
ears sometimes.
yeah, that's true. All right, 2.
So now we're at 2. It's got to be verses for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's I feel like I'm really doing a lot of when you're doing your March Madness picks. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm hitting a lot of chalk right now, a lot of ones and twos. He's moving on.
Yeah.
But it's I think for a lot of people, the first 3 albums were their entry point, and that's what the sound of the band was to them, and that's what brought them in. Anything that was different from that sound was a departure that they would have to either find at some point or happen to also like, that style. So hearing the Versus songs on the radio, hearing the CD, watching the MTV Video Music Awards, playing Animal for the first time.
Oh, that was so good.
Oh my God. I thought I knew what this band was all about, but this is it wasn't like higher. They couldn't really get any higher than what they were doing with 10, but it was just like another mountain.
Mm-hmm.
They just jumped over to like, oh, that's a rougher mountain.
Right. Yeah.
There's harder terrain on that mountain.
Right.
You're scaling it and just the same. Wow. And so it was just a different kind of power. But it still had the moments of restraint, like Indifference and Daughter, Elderly Woman. And so it brought you some more dynamics that you got tastes of with Black and Release. Obviously they would go further down that with Vitalogy and then even more with No Code. And so if you were happy with that and wanted more of it, and depending on what age you were, that would work for you. But again, like I said, where you got these albums, and for me at the time being 11, 12 years old, I just wanted to rock out. And it just, to this day, and I think it's Stone's favorite record, it is front to back. I love every single song. Yep. They're all great.
That was my number 2 as well. And I think, for me, what's funny is like, I would like someone to go in. I would almost say I would like Andrew Watt to go back in and remix and rework on
Blasphemy.
10.
You just pissed off a lot of people.
That's fine. I don't care because there's maybe not Andrew Watt, but maybe like somebody else with different ears to go back and like remaster and mix 10 and Versus.
That would be interesting though, because when you think about Brendan going back and remixing 10 and remixing Avocado, what if somebody went back and remixed his records with the band?
Right. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The reason I say that is I love 10, but I do not love the way that sonically it sits, which is fine. It's indicative of the time that they recorded it. And I just think or how about this? Can you imagine, this is just like a pipe dreamy thing, but can you imagine if they did a Taylor Swift and went back now and recorded those songs in a studio with like modern gear?
I'll tell you what.
And like,
she is a pioneer in a lot of ways. I mean, I love the idea of her saying, "Fuck you, dude. I'm gonna just grab these rights back and make my own versions of
Yeah.
this." It's kind of been done a couple of times by a couple of other bands. Thrice just did it, I think, last year with Artist in the Ambulance. They re-recorded the whole album for the
Mm-hmm.
20th anniversary. And then this year, I think just actually last Friday, Incubus released Morning of You for the 23rd anniversary, which is a strange one.
That's crazy. Yeah.
They re-recorded it, and there's like some small arrangement tweaks here and there, and Brandon's voice is different. So, um, yeah, there's like a renaissance of like redoing your music, and like I don't know, I don't know, I can't speak to why those bands did it, but it is an interesting concept. And I don't know if you're an Anthrax fan,
Back
but
in the day.
Anthrax, Joey Belladonna was the singer, the OG singer, right? And then he leaves in like I want to say the early to mid 90s. They bring in this dude from Armored Saint to sing. They did a couple albums with him, and right before Joey decided to come back, they were like, you know what? Let's go ahead and record like basically our greatest hits, but with this dude. So we have it's called The Greater of Two Evils. And it's basically like 15 tracks, like their favorite tracks in the first 25 years, including the Joey stuff, where they re-recorded it with him singing. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, what Pearl Jam isn't the kind of band to do that. They hate looking.
No, they'll
backwards.
never do that.
But it would be cool.
It would be super fun, and I would like to hear their take on like the sonics of like how what gear would they use, and, like how would they redo things. And I would love when they put that video out of the warehouse, like, and I would love to hear every flippin' story of every guitar they bought on the road, where they bought it.
You and me are the same, because like while it's cool to like Zane's pointing at like tour rarities and like t-shirts and stuff like that, like, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Let's open those cases though.
Right? Yeah. Dude, I mean, I would love to like talk to Mike or Stone and be like, can you talk to me about how your rig has changed over the years?
Yeah.
Because Stone is using amps that my buddy builds right now.
Really?
And yeah, and I was so pumped when I heard that he was using those, and I've seen pictures, and you can see it's his amps.
What is it?
Amplified Nation.
Oh yeah.
So he's using those on the road because Jeff had one of those for a while. And I think Stone got a little sniff of it and was like, what's this little thing? So he's using, I think he's using the Bombshell model. I don't know, but it's all that Dumble kind of vibe.
Well, I mean, that's what Andrew had at his house for that first 10 days of recording. He used 4 different Dumbles.
That's so crazy.
And when they it was almost 2 years later when they went to Shangri-La, that's when they had their own stuff. But maybe it struck a chord. Not to add a pun, but
I don't know, but I mean, back to what we were saying. I think it would be really cool to reimagine things. I mean, Brothers Landreth just did that with their 10th anniversary of Let It Lie. Really? They didn't do it like electric, but they went back and they did the whole album acoustic. It's really cool. So when they did this last tour, they did 2 sets. The first set was them playing the whole album Let It Lie, but with the acoustic arrangements. And it was gorgeous. And it was, I mean, those guys sing like birds. They're so talented. 4-part harmonies, and it just blew my mind. And then I can imagine like if a band like Pearl Jam did that, went back and did like something like that, maybe not re-record like electric and do everything that you did initially, but like what a cool like side door. I don't know, it'd be neat. A
reimagining of a dozen songs but acoustically.
Yeah, it'd be so cool, like their own controlled MTV Unplugged. What I mean?
Exactly. And they have so many more songs to choose from since 1992, obviously.
Yeah.
But to hear, if they were to do a re-recording properly, to think about how did the binaural songs sound. And that was actually a bugaboo on that tour, was that they kind of kept the same like distortion and gain structures across all the songs, even though Break or Fall sounds nothing sonically like Even Flow.
Right.
And so that was kind of a funky thing for guitar nerds to hear those songs played in what felt like almost neutered gain territory, if you will, which worked for those songs, but not necessarily for the older songs. I think they've since adjusted that. But yeah, to go back and pick a handful of songs to do acoustically would be very interesting.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. All right, you want to talk about our number ones?
I mean,
Hit me,
Is
Jason.
it not 10 for you as well?
It is not.
Okay, well, it's
10 didn't
10 for
make my
me.
top 5.
Yeah, there are some folks who it's like inverse tables. It's like they're all about the more intricate and weird and eclectic stuff, and they live in that no code or Vitalogy world. And some folks like to get hit in the mouth. Apparently, I'm sadomasochistic. I like to get hit in the mouth. Yeah. So again, I think nostalgia has a lot to do with it. I think when you enter the fandom is kind of what hits you. Like I'm sure there's some fans that found the band in 2006 and were like, "Severed Hand is the greatest song ever be played." And it's
Right.
like, yes, it is great, but have
That's
you
an
heard
awesome
this
song.
one?
Right? Yeah.
So I always find that interesting to see where people find the band because that is indicative of what they prefer and also their age. So it's hard for me to not look at 10 and say every one of those songs was burned to a crisp in my CD player for years before I even thought of enjoying anything else.
Right.
And even though I've heard every song on that album live at least 3 or 4 times, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. You think that you will have heard the best version of one of those songs long ago. I go to Austin last year, like I said, best Black I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And that includes probably most of the boots that I've listened to, which is plentiful.
Yeah.
So to feel that way in 2023 about Black is pretty wild. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm picking Kansas to go to the Final Four. It's just like, sorry, it just is what it is for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a supernatural relationship with fans in that record. Like that just, supersedes anything else. Nothing would get in the way and block your vision from that because you have such a supernatural connection with it. I think if we had done 6, 10 would have been 6 for me.
And No Code would have been 6 for me.
Yeah. So it's like, I think there's a strong connection to that record for a lot of people. And me too. I just think, I mean, have you ever seen my tattoo, my Pearl Jam tattoo?
No.
So you probably can't see it too well, but
it's a red. Is that the stick man on top of the yield symbol?
Yep. So it's my favorite band and my favorite album. That's my number 1 album.
Good choice.
So Yield for me was, and I went back and forth for many long years about, do I get stick man with something in it? I'm like, I have to, because that is that is the imprint on me of what this band is. And it is, Yield for me, I think is just a perfect record. It's like what Josh says about Vitalogy. And it's like what you said earlier. It's like every song on that album has a story to tell in my mind. I think that groove wise, Jack Irons is probably one of my favorite drummers that they've ever had. I love the way Jack hits a snare. And immediately I can be laying with my eyes closed, just laying down, listening to records, and I could hear a snippet and just of the drums and like everything else cut out of the mix. So it could be Dave, could be Matt, could be, Jack, and I will know exactly who Jack is just by the way he attacks a snare. And I just love his veracity on that record and his caveman like kind of virtuosity, I should say, because it's not rocket science drumming. Like Matt is a brilliant drummer and also probably one of my favorite drummers, period, because he is so smart. He's got every bit of chops you could ever want out of any drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like when he came into the band, started touring, that they were pushing BPM so fast. And I don't know if that was Ed was like, speed it up, or if Matt was just like, oh my God, am I playing the right thing? Is this the same song that I was supposed to learn? Because he got thrown so much music.
Fire.
Yeah. So you can't blame him. But Yield, man. Yield is my golden calf. It always will be. If there was like somebody was like, you can only listen to one album, the rest of your life, not just Pearl Jam, but one album, I'd be like, Yield. So I just have like a connection with it, and that's why I was like,
Pilot is fun.
Oh my God, I love it.
I love Pilot. People knock on Pilot, and Paul especially will knock on Pilot, and I'll be like, but Paul, you also have a dog. He doesn't appreciate my dad jokes.
I do too, but No, I mean, I just think it's a wonderful record, and then like what you were saying about No Way, like that's one of my faves, and that cocked wah tone at the beginning of
Exactly. He
that.
doesn't do that live.
No,
It
yeah.
drives me nuts. I'm like, that's the crux of the riff.
I know. It sounds so cool on the record, but I don't know, man. That's my fave, and that will always be my fave. But at first, when I first heard Dark Matter, I was gonna put it right below Yield. That's how much I liked it when I first heard it. But then I started thinking when I did this, and I went back and I looked at every song on every record, and was like, I can't say that I love those songs more than I love these songs. You know what I mean? So that was the hardest part about it. But yeah, I freaking.
You know what you can do is you can go to we use livefootsteps.org to keep track of things when it comes to stats. They do a great job of keeping live stats, and there's a portion of the site where you can you create your profile, whatever, and you go to the albums page, and you can kind of star every song with 0 to 5. And so I did that for all the records, trying to be as like not obviously not objective, but trying to keep my blinders on and say, okay, just focus on the song. Do you like the song? How much do you like it? Give it a rating. Don't overthink it. Move on. And that way you can be like, you don't have to like try and hem and haw about it. And it's really as qualitative as you can, or quantitative as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look back and you go, oh, wow, I guess I do like that record a lot.
Right?
As compared to that one. And it allows you to go and then look at certain shows and be like, wow, I rated this show a 4.1. I wouldn't have thought that. But then you're like, there's always like the soft factors, right? It's like, oh, but I just broke up with my girlfriend. They happened to play Black that night. And it was just, oh my God. So like, there's always like these weird intangibles that make a concert great or not so great.
Right.
Like a buddy of mine went to the Uniondale show when Bush Leaguer came out. He's like, yeah, it was super awkward. And I don't really care about Bush Leaguer, but that was awesome. I'm like, yeah, you'd be a memorable show. And weird shoehorn plug for that website, but it's a really cool way to kind of keep yourself like, if you were struggling to quantitatively figure out what your favorite record is, just zone in and give it stars and then look back at it later.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised.
Yeah, that's fun. I'll check that out. Yeah, I mean, it's because like just looking at like album tracks and everything today, because there's so much music now. They've put out so much music. It's so hard to keep track of what. I mean, I know what songs were on which records, but like in which order they came and all that is like I don't remember all that stuff. But yeah, it was fun to think about this because it makes you realize too, like just how much you love the band. When you have like a you got to put them in a cage match. Like these two songs, you got to put them in a cage match and let them fight it out. You know what I mean?
We did a over on our Discord channel. We did a like a March Madness style thing, and it's just like I was not actually mad, but I was like, "How do you not vote for that song over that song?" And it's all subjective.
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh my God! Like we did a show a couple years back before the Gigaton tour started. Like, what's your dream set list? You get 30 songs. Dream set list if you'll name one more show. And you're doing it and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you look at the discography and you're like, oh, I forgot that song. What do I take out?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. I can't. I want to sneak in this weird B-side that I haven't heard before, but I can't get rid of this song. Like,
yeah, I'll get rid of Grammy Out of Control. That's easy. And we'll get that out of there.
That's a quick round.
Oh, man. Well, okay. So here's the thing. This is
lightning rounds time?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is a great segue. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, Jason. Usually on this show, when I do lightning round get down, it's like, Fender or Gibson or blah, 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 blah. What I'm going to do today is this Pearl Jam song versus this Pearl Jam song. Okay, so let me put on a little bit of a metronome here. We're going to cruise at an altitude of 112 BPM.
Okay.
And usually I do 10. I think I did 14 today because I couldn't stop.
All
right, so here we go. First one.
Am I just saying yes? Am I just picking one? Or am I giving it an explanation?
You can give explanation if you want. That's fine.
I'll try and be concise.
And the beginning, the first several, or actually, I went through all the studio albums in order. So, first one is Even Flow or Deep?
Even Flow.
Animal or Leash?
Fuck. I'll go Animal. Ah, God, I don't like that though.
Whipping or Satan's Bed?
Whipping.
Present tense or Around the Bend?
Present tense.
Oh, also, by the way, I will say, because In Hiding or Brain of J is next, but In Hiding is my favorite song of all time. That's my favorite.
Okay, is it no pressure to suck
no
up
pressure.
the host?
But In Hiding or Brain of J?
In Hiding. Tough though.
Yeah. Thin Air or Of the Girl?
God. Thin Air.
Okay. That's such a great song, dude.
There's a
Can't
line.
Can't Keep or You Are?
You Are.
Oh, that's such a great song, dude. The guitar tone on that.
Bring it back. Bring back the drum machine guitar sound.
Yes. Life Wasted or Severed Hand?
Severed Hand.
Johnny Guitar or Amongst the Waves?
I'm gonna go Johnny Guitar. Fuck it.
I love that song.
Amongst the Waves is great, but like Johnny Guitar is, even though the song, the lyrics are like a bit silly, the music's fun.
It's super fun.
Yeah.
Infallible or Lightning Bolt?
Lightning Bolt. Infallible is good though.
Such a great song. Whoever Said or Quick Escape?
Whoever Said.
Wreckage or Waiting for Stevie?
Stevie. But that's like splitting babies in half. I mean, come on.
I know, it's tough. All right, so here's a couple B-side stuff.
All right.
Footsteps or Wash?
Oh, God damn it. I've always been a massive sucker for Wash, so I'll go with that.
Okay, it's a great tune. Dirty Frank or Alone?
Alone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here's the last one.
Okay.
These are two of my favorite songs too. Fatal or In the Moonlight?
Ooh, that is fun. I'm gonna go Fatal, mostly because of the lyrics I prefer more than in the Moonlight. But In the Moonlight is such a funky little, just like it feels like you're drunk walking.
Yeah. In the Moonlight is one of the weirdest time signature things I think that they've ever done.
What is it?
I can't remember off the top of my head. Because I was in a Pearl Jam tribute band for a little bit, and we were going to work.
What was it called?
Lost Dogs.
Okay.
And this is before there was a British band called Lost Dogs.
Yeah,
we found out years later. We did that way before they did that. And we were working on stuff. We were working up stuff, and the drummer, I think, was like, I don't want to do In the Moonlight. I think that's just gonna mess me up. I'm gonna be so freaked out every time we play it. So we didn't end up doing it. But we did a bunch. I mean, we did like, this is right when I can't remember what record had just come out, but I mean, I was doing the mic stuff. My buddy was the Stone in the band. Like everybody had their job.
Can you do the mic stuff? Can you get out and do it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Man, that's something I just can't do.
Dude, he's the reason I play guitar, man. Like that's like he's my guy. Like him, and there's a handful of dudes that like made me want to pick it up, but he's the main one. He is the 100% main one.
Curious.
So after I got into Mike and started like, digging back, like what did he listen to? That's what led me to Jimmy, and that's what led me to Stevie. So Jimmy and Stevie, like I got to them through Mike. But like I'm in a jam band now, and I grew up listening to the Grateful Dead and Fish and Mo. So like Trey Anastasio was big for a long time. Chuck Garvey from the band Mo was a huge. John Schofield, Wayne Krantz, those fusion dudes are my favorites. Yeah, Grant Green, he's an old jazz head. There's a bunch of stuff like that I love, but I got into Pantera when I was in middle school and some Metallica and stuff.
How can you not love Dimebag Darrell?
Oh, he's great, dude. He was great. I have his wah pedal. I have the Crybaby from Hell, man. Yeah, it's great. But my older brother was a big jam band dude. Like he was a Deadhead, and he had a huge influence on me. Like once I started really understanding and playing the guitar well, my brother was like, you should listen to this. You should check this out. You should check this out. And then I was like, oh wow, I think I like improvisational music. Which is, I think that's what I love about Pearl Jam is they're very Dead like, minus like we talked about earlier, like the hits, playing the hits, night to night. They do their best to like look at like, okay, what did we play last time we were in this city? Like, and I that's what I love about them is like they're in that mindset. So
and they'll go and do a 9-minute porch and be all over the map and then find their way back. And it's like, wow, that was quite the hike, and I loved it.
Yeah, no, it's super awesome. I can't remember, dude, somebody who was on my show. Oh, and they said Matt Cameron came and he sat in. Oh my God, who was that?
Where?
They were playing at the Showbox.
Oh.
And he was there, and they were like, you want to sit in? But it was like a fusion group. Oh my God.
I'm sure he could do it.
Oh me. But yeah, he played, and I think they might have even done like a dual drum set thing that night. God damn it, stupid balloons. But anyway, like, yeah, I mean, all those guys, I think that's a lot of the other last thing I'll say, and then you can take us out with your final thoughts. But they're all such great musicians, and I think that's what people don't get is like in the 90s scene, comparatively speaking, they were writing better stuff, like more. I mean, Soundgarden, I would say, is like, up there for me too.
I was just gonna say.
But melodically speaking, harmonically, how they were writing modally, where they probably didn't even realize they were, but they were because they had great ears. They're just great players, and I think that's something that people overlook when they think about Pearl Jam. And I would say, no, they're freaking great players. So.
Music is funny because music, people are attached to music because of how it makes them feel, and that could be noisecore, it could be classical, it could be anything. It could be just a great groove and atonal everything else, but it has a great groove. So I think there's a lot of music that I really love that does a certain thing. And I think about when you say Nirvana, it's like Nirvana was really good at a certain thing. Were they better musicians, save for maybe Dave Grohl on the drums because he's incredible?
Mm-hmm.
Were the rest of them great musicians? They were really good, but could they really play? Could they really play? Could you hold them up and say, write a song this complex? Not to say that complex equals good, but can you do it? Can you allow yourself more headroom to play different things? And I don't know Nirvana had the headroom as a band to do enough. And I'm gonna break the internet by saying that I don't know that Nirvana would have gone to another level into the 2000s that would have been anything super impressive. Because I think by the time they got to In Utero, which I really do enjoy, it's almost like they were. Again, this is I don't want to bash Kurt because obviously he was going through a lot there, but like they were almost musically on fumes in a way, because it felt like a lot of what they were doing to me was almost like, is it derivative of Bleach? Is it like trying to pluck the good things out of Nevermind and then strip away all the sheen? And unfortunately, the production on top of the great songwriting was what made Nevermind. I don't know. I'm spitballing out of my brain right now. I'm brain vomiting.
I know what you mean.
I do enjoy Nirvana a lot, but when you talk about musicianship, as you pointed out there with Pearl Jam, there's something else there, and I just appreciate bands that can offer me a lot of different things, and those guys can. Whereas I think some bands, even the ones that I like, probably couldn't, and that's okay. Bad Religion is fucking great, but they're doing one thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing about Mike. I think that's why he spoke to me, is because he's very soulful. Like the way he plays, he's very, very soulful. And not many other people from that time period could you say make me cry, and he'll actually do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a depth there. I think that's what I saw through when I first heard it, and I was so young, I didn't know what I was seeing or what I was hearing. But when I heard it, I saw that, and I felt seen because I'm like, you found me.
That right there. That's exactly what I've said about this band through the 200 some odd episodes we've done. I even wrote a foreword in my buddy Step's book about what the band has done, and that the biggest thing I think they've done, especially back when they first broke through, is that they were able to compassionately empathize with the kids of the youth of generation, if I can quote POD. That
well
was
done.
strange.
Well done.
They're able to like understand them just by playing music at them.
Yeah.
Like, we know what you're talking about. We know what you're feeling. And this is the music that we think that we are feeling too, that we think you're going to relate to better than most bands I've ever come across.
Yeah. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Jason. Let me pop up everything in here. Everybody go follow.
Oh, look at that.
Here we go.
Thanks, Bev.
Go follow the State of Love and Trust podcast. It's amazing. Like, if you're a big fan like we are, obviously you're going to enjoy it. A lot of really thoughtful conversations. Everything I've heard, Jason, when I do listen to, when I have time to do that, it's great, and I love him.
Thank
What you
you.
guys have to say in terms of like behind scene stuff, in front of the scene stuff, like a little bit deeper, thoughtful things about the lyrics and maybe things that people don't consider. But everybody, please go check out all these links. Support these guys. They're doing the Lord's work, and the
And
Lord's
you know what?
work.
Speaking of the Lord's work, BV is the producer across the internet of music shows.
Yes,
I
BB.
have
Thank
been a That Pedal Show fan for years, BV, and you're always there in the chat on VCQ Mondays. Good on you, brother.
BB's awesome. So everybody, so Jason, anything else? Anything to promote? You guys got anything fun coming up?
Actually, we do. What time is it? In about 4 hours, I'll be talking to Dave Cruson.
Yeah.
Talking little drums. So that'll come out next Tuesday. And we've got more fun interviews coming up. And thanks. We got so many good interviews and silly exercises in our back catalog. Most of it is evergreen. So just get in there and enjoy yourself.
So great. Thanks so much, Jason.
Thank you, man.
Everybody, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We'll see you next time.